Strong heart, clear mind. The mind becomes still when the heart becomes strong. And this makes a lot of sense to us. We often talk about how the nervous system generates a lot of the thoughts in the mind. And the nervous system generates a lot of thoughts when there's some feeling of, I'm not safe. I need to figure out what's going on. I need to protect myself. When we have some kind of social impact, social anxiety from past experiences, we have all of this experience stored inside of us, trauma stored inside of us. We have all of this inside of us, and then a lot of it gets stored as sensation in our body. A lot of it gets stored as tight shoulders and upper back, or clenching our teeth, or all of those different experiences that we have. And we've done quite a bit of work on the connection with our inner child, our younger self. And one of the things that we know from working with ourselves, but also working with actual children, is we can't rush in. If we were to just show up and sit quietly and let the child come to us, they'll come when they feel safe enough. And that's actually one of the ways that co-regulation works as well, that our adult self, our more mature adult self, can take a few breaths. We can release the energy that's in our body. We can tune in. We notice if we have core deficiency beliefs going on. But we can also bring compassion as we regulate and our nervous system settles. We can bring compassion and the willingness to connect, that empathetic connection with our younger self. And what Michael Singer is saying a lot of the time is we don't have to do anything. We just have to be there consistently in a kind way. We can acknowledge the sensitivity that we have in our heart and bring our consciousness there. Then that is what really supports that deep healing. Just the presence of consciousness is a healing force. When we think about how so much of the time in our emotional life, we're not grounded and centered, we're not in a state of calm connection, we're in a state of fight, flight, or freeze. And a lot of the anger might be a fight response, it might be that we're numb and we're disconnected. In order to come back into the awareness of consciousness, we have to be a little bit regulated in order to do that. And that's a lot of what we're doing. And as we're more regulated, and as we have that, what Dick Schwartz in the internal family systems would call the capital S self, we could also call it our more adult self or our more regulated self, then we have that opportunity to reassure part of us that's scared and to actually come into connection and be here. And we don't have to do anything else. Just our presence is healing. A strong heart is not one that's closed. We all know the feeling of armoring up. We have all of that iron plate on the front of our heart center so that we don't get hurt. And that's not really what a strong heart is. A strong heart is one that we can allow to have emotion move through, are familiar with it enough that we're not scared of what the emotion is. We have enough tools that we can come into regulation when we feel like I'm starting to get swept back into a traumatic memory from the past. I can open my eyes, I can look around, I can hold my own hands, I can breathe, I can know I'm not actually in the past right now. I'm working with a memory that's coming up. As we work through some of those memories, as we work through some of that, our mind becomes more quiet because we're not as agitated. We're not always in that state of fear. I thought we could do a bit of a practice about this. If you were to open your eyes and look around the room that you're in, whatever space you're in right now, and hear as well, use all your senses, listen as well. I live with a dog, so I get a lot of that. We'll hear a sound, and sometimes she'll race outside barking. And I know often what the sound is. Right now, there's a lot of sounds of the snow melting off the roof and crashing down. We have all of our senses, and some of the times we have pretty accurate assessment, but we can use our senses to come back into this awareness. Right now, as you're looking around, is there anything dangerous that you're seeing? You can look behind you as well. Our nervous system works very much through the senses, not so much through what we think about it. And as you're listening and feeling and touching into that, we can assess if we're safe or in danger. What's our relative safety and danger? If we're not noticing anything that's alarming in our immediate environment, that's a good thing to know, because oftentimes what's happening in our internal environment is that we're kind of caught in the past, we're caught in our history. When we think about any kind of frightening visual images, so I'm thinking about in particular horror movies, we fall for that because our brain doesn't know that it's not true, it's not happening. If you think about the evolution of humanity over millennia and then the last less than 100 years of moving pictures, our brain hasn't quite caught up with the fact that that image that we're seeing isn't true. However, we also have many associations. So when I'm looking at that picture of that door and the cement steps, appreciating the colors, they're beautiful. It might remind some of us here of an actual door, maybe in your neighborhood, or maybe you were on vacation. It might remind somebody else of tripping over a step and hurting themselves. It might remind some people of having the door open and the other person on the other side is very welcoming, or maybe the other. So let's take a moment to check in with what are the associations that you're noticing as you're looking at that door or imagining another door that's familiar to you. How many associations do you have? And of all of those associations, how many of them are relevant to your sense of safety and danger right now? So we might, the next time we walk up some steps towards a door, and the next time we knock on a door, some of that information might be helpful. But right now, unless you're actually walking through a door or knocking on a door, you don't really need to have that alarm in your body of any potential problem that could happen. This is what happens in our system all the time. When we look around the room and we look for cues of safety, some people look at a doorway as that's a cue of safety. I can make sure nobody comes in that I don't want to have in my room. Or it could be a cue of safety in that there's an exit for me, I can get out. Depends on what our past experiences have been, what associations we have. We're not trying to make it right or wrong. We're really just trying to look, what are they? What is going on? Again, this is Michael Singer. Your work with consciousness coming to bear in the heart. We just are here with a consciousness in the heart. He's saying that emotions are the heart releasing energy. Don't go with the smoke, stay with the heart. The emotion doesn't mean anything. And I would agree with that on one level. And I also think it's very possible that a lot of times we've been not feeling the emotions, not because it doesn't mean anything, but because we can't stand to feel the emotion. We might be bypassing emotion. We might be blocking out what's going on in the heart. What I think is most relevant to the work that we're doing right now is, how can I stay present with what's going on in my heart? And let the emotions go through. Don't grab onto them, but also don't avoid them. How could we do that? So let's sit with that for a little bit. Don't go with the smoke. It's another way of saying, let's stay present. Notice again your physical body. Notice your whole body, head to toes. Notice how you're breathing. What are the signals right now in your nervous system? Are you feeling pretty calm and centered and grounded? Are you feeling alarmed? Somewhere in the middle there. And how we tell that partly is, if we're holding our breath, that's a signal of alarm. If we're breathing more deeply or smooth, continuous breath, that's a signal. We might be deliberately shifting the breath so that we're signaling that, but that's a signal to the nervous system that it's safe enough to breathe, it's safe enough to take up space. They don't need to hide out and not be noticed. It's okay. Another thing that might be a signal is the contraction or tightness in our body. So if you're noticing you're frowning or clenching your teeth, as we're sitting with this, those are some of the cues to be paying attention to. Let's let all of that be in the background of this is the process. You can have your eyes open, your gaze soft, your eyes closed, whatever works for you. We're going to do a practice for, a little over 5 minutes of being present with the heart. One of the first things we could notice is where it is. It's protected by the rib cage, the bottom of the rib cage, the top of the rib cage, the front and the back, the sides, under our arms. And we are witnessing thoughts as well. So we're using the brain in our head. We might have times, depending on what's coming up, that our gut gets involved. We might have fear. We might have other sensations, other places in our body. So we're going to just watch and see. What does my heart know? What's going on in my heart right now? I notice it might not be immediate that something comes up. You might be just sitting there waiting. That's fine. You might even use an inquiry statement like, I'm open to feeling anything. It's the reverse inquiry, which might bring up some kind of resistance or like, well, no, not exactly. I don't want to feel that or overwhelmed or whatever that might be. So sometimes that can bring forward something to work with. You might think about a situation, your emotional response to something, just to get things going a little bit if you need to. And then we sit back and we watch, we witness. And use any change to alert you. It might be a sensation or feeling in your heart area or somewhere else. It might be that you're noticing thoughts in your mind or change in your breath. I don't have to hide from my heart. And remember to stay in the present moment. Use all the tools. Open your eyes, look around, cues of safety, hold your hand, notice your breath. Stay here as a witness, experiencing what's here. We're going to finish this part in a couple of minutes. So if you wander off, just come back. Whatever it is that you're noticing, if you could let that be here just as it is. Stay with your heart.